Hi, and I'm just going to quickly talk about the under-23s and how they performed in 2011. So basically the start of the year, late 2010 they just won the Asian Games with an understrength side where, Japanese football became familiar with a few new faces for the future, guys like Kensuke Nagai, Ryohei Yamazaki, couple others whose names have escaped me right now, but yeah, it was basically back then those guys were either uni students or people that weren't seriously important for their J-League club. So, but they came through, they won the whole thing back then, which was great. Anyway, they came into 2011 and had some friendlies in the Middle East and against Uzbekistan as well. So they played the first teams of Bahrain and Kuwait with not great results. I think they lost one of them and won the other narrowly. They lost to Kuwait, I think, and they played two friendlies in Uzbekistan, winning the second one. I think they lost the first one 1-0. They played a friendly game at home against Australia with a lot closer to their best team, and they beat them 3-1. After they had a very bad first half, where Australia played quite well, they got on the ball and they got the 3 points, although that was a friendly, so there's no points. They had a playoff in the second round of Olympic qualifying against Kuwait, won 4-3 over 2 legs, with a little bit to be desired from their second game. Then they played a friendly with Egypt, beat them 2-1 in quite a good performance, I thought. Now, the start of the third round, they got drawn with the final round. Basically, they're in a group of 4, and the top of the group goes to the Olympics straight away. Second place has to go through playoff systems and so on. Anyway, they were drawn in probably the easiest group of the Olympic round, where they were drawn with Malaysia, Bahrain, and Syria. And they've done quite good to begin with. They haven't looked all that impressive always, but their first 3 matches, they got 3 wins on 9 points ahead of Syria, who are on 6 points, and they're poised to qualify for the Olympics. The most important game in this context will be the next one against Syria when away from home. And if they win that game, then they're pretty much as good as qualified. Let's see. So briefly, the issues with the under-23s at the moment, I think, is a very obvious problem, which is also present in the national team. There's a bit of a lack of depth at centre-back and also central midfield. So at centre-back, at the moment they're playing... Well, the team plays a 4-2-3-1 formation, similar to the national team. And one guy called Mizuki Hamada, who was born in the United States, but is he's Japanese, and he's a great prospect for that position. I think he's recently, towards the end of the J-League season, he won his starting spot at Urawa, which was good to see, over Matthew Sporanovic. So if Hamada can keep developing, I think he'll be great centre-back. However, his partner is undecided. Or I think it's kind of decided, but it's not completely satisfactory. I think it's Suzuki. I'm not sure. But as a defence, they have a little bit to be desired. I think at the Olympics, I think that would be great to have Yoshida as an overage player to partner Hamada. Only because Yoshida still has a good maybe 8 to 10 years even in the national team ahead of him. And he only missed out on the Olympic team for his age by about 4 months or something like this. So I think it would be good to get him in there and have some international experience before the World Cup, because the Olympics is quite a high level. Other issues, there's central midfield also. And I think they're missing a bit of muscle in the middle of the park. And that could be fixed by, depending on where Kazuya Yamamura decides to play, both for club and his position. Because he can play either centre-back or he can play central midfield. And where he plays will depend on what club he chooses. I'm not sure if that's been decided yet, but I think it was between Jubilo, Kawasaki and Kashima. I think he was choosing one of those 3 teams to join. So, yeah. Also, with the under-23s, sort of for the first time that I'm aware of, they have quite a few players overseas and quite a few players that are already in the national team or in the national squad or in the national team. Like, technically, Shinji Kagawa, he's eligible to play for that team, but whether he does or not is unsure. I think he might not. I think the JFA will just say let another kid have that spot, even though Kagawa would make that team quite a lot stronger. But there are other guys that haven't been able to play all their games because of either being overseas or being in the A team. For example, Hiroshi Kiyotake and Genki Haraguchi are both in the national squad. Kiyotake tends to get game time. Haraguchi's more just a squad member at this stage, but both of them are in the national setup and they've sort of been taken away from Sekizuka. Also, 3 guys in Europe, Takashi Usami at Bayern, Ryo Miyaichi at Arsenal, and last one, Yuki Otsu in Borussia Mönchengladbach. All 3 would be very important members of the national team, but again, their clubs don't want to release them just for Olympic Games. Well, not necessarily Olympics, but they don't want to release them for just the Olympic qualifiers. So, I mean, I think because of this, there might be a bit of trouble trying to get the team to gel together, especially if eventually they can get their hands on the overseas players and Kiyotaka and so on. And that's a challenge for Sekizuka. Sorry I'm rambling. A lot of what I've said probably hasn't made sense, I don't think, but I'll keep going. Overage players, they're able to use 3 at the Olympics if they choose. I think if they would, Yoshida would be a great choice to play alongside Hamada, just because Yoshida himself is a little bit inexperienced as centre-back, but also very promising. People don't like him, but I think he's going to be a great player in the future. So I think Yoshida should be an overage player. I think they should consider having maybe a striker, but a young striker. So, for example, Mike Havener. And if they were to have a 3rd overage player, they could go probably a central midfielder. So I would suggest Hajime Hosogai. But again, they've actually got they don't need these players. Like, they'll make the team quite strong, but if the JFA do what they did last time for Beijing and decide to go no overage players, I think the team will do quite well because it's a very talented generation. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting players, probably a huge amount of competition for places, especially in the attacking half if you consider all the players that Sekizuka could play. Also, I want to see at centre forward, that's a position that hasn't been, I think, cemented quite yet. A few guys have tried their luck there. Osako currently seems to be the number 1 choice, but he's also got Nagai, who's often come on late in games to to change things up a bit, sometimes on the wing. I think Hiroshi Ibusuki, who plays in Spain for the Sevilla Atletico, so that's their reserve team. He's been playing very well in Spain for the past few seasons, and I think he deserves a chance in the under-23 side. Yeah, but it's a very talented team. I think they'll do well. 2012 is going to be a very important year for them with the Olympics, and that's a very big part of the development of these players. And if you look at the current national team, I think there's a huge number of them that were playing in the Beijing Olympics. So, that's a good chunk of the future national team we'll be able to see playing in London. So, yeah, I think, okay, so that's all for now. I'll do a video for women's football next, and then one more after that for the national team, and just quickly sum it up. Bye-bye.